as we rebirth into feminine consciousness, as the feminine starts to take her rightful place next to the masculine and starts to set boundaries and starts to embrace her emotional body, then the masculine and the dark forces on the planet can no longer thrive on power and control because it will be sucked up. The darkness can't exist if we are all living in alignment with the truth of who we are as powerful creators, as sovereign beings who are here to do this work together and help each other rise up into a new way.
Hey, soul family. Welcome to the Alive and Awake podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Kay, and I have spent the last 20 years teaching people how to work with their wounds and overcome their greatest fears so they can learn how to thrive in a world where they were only taught to conform. Each week, we will dive deep into the practical, the spiritual, and the mystical so I can teach you how to do the inner work to know yourself, trust yourself, and eventually love yourself enough to create a world where you feel fully alive, awake, and free. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode. Ready? Let's dive in.
Hello there. Thanks for tuning in this week. We have quite a juicy topic that I feel probably the whole world needs to tune into at this point, but we're going to break it down and keep it pretty simple as I teach you what are emotions, why we have them, what our purpose is, what to do with them, and why the heck we feel so much shame around having them. So make sure you stay tuned to the end of the episode because I'm going to give you a very cool technique and how to figure out what's going on inside of you so that you can understand what your higher self is trying to communicate with you. So I just got done teaching module 3 of my online course, Wake Up the Warrior Within. And module 3 is all about winning the war with your emotional body. Now, many people don't understand or know that we have feminine and masculine energies inside of us. A long time ago in ancient civilizations in like Lemuria and Atlantis, where I guess the best way to describe what that was like is the movie Avatar. So if you tune into that movie, which happens to be my favorite freaking movie of all time, by the way, and if you know me, you know why, because I'm very much into interconnectedness and unity and all things that have to do with us ascending into a higher level of being on our Earth planet. However, that aside, in the movie is the best way that I possibly could describe what these ancient civilizations were like, where there was a balance and harmony between the earth plane and the species and the way that we used to interact with each other, and where the masculine had their role in their warrior archetype or their ability to keep order on the land, and the feminine was so intuitive and communicated with the plants and the species, and like we had these energies inside of us that were embodied, and there was no such thing as feeling separate from the planet or separate from the earth plane or separate from each other. Everything was in homeostasis and was in equilibrium. And in these ancient cities of Atlantis and Lemuria, that's exactly what it was like before there was the fall. And when the fall happened and the dark forces started to infiltrate the planet, then we ascended into a lower state of consciousness where the dark energies started to infiltrate the earth plane and made us feel like we were in a fallen state and separate from source, separate from the intuitive intelligence in our bodies, separate from the spirit that created life and gave birth to all things. We essentially started to feel like we are at war, not only with each other, but with ourselves. And all of this like darkness started to come in. And lo and behold, this energy infiltrated the masculine consciousness and made them feel like the woman was the lesser, more subservient race. And so the women became servants, We got taken out of our positions of power. We were burned at the stakes. They did not understand our intuitive capabilities and essentially called us all witches because we had a higher level of knowledge that the masculine couldn't understand. And then they not only rejected their own inner feminine energy, the mother god, who was essentially bludgeoned out of consciousness, also rejected the outer feminine essence as well, where it was masculine dominant, power and control. And I don't say this in a way to shame the masculine because I don't really want to get on my soapbox, but I'm gonna because it's my podcast. And what really has been working on me over the last like 3 to 4 years or so is just how much the masculine has been wounded as the feminine, but in a different way, right? So when you can convince the masculine that the way that they get power and success and accolades and recognition is through power and dominance and control and force and strength, then you actually get them to reject their inner feminine qualities. Like they have been taught that feeling emotions is weak and is not strong. And the men that I work with and the men that I've seen that are so wounded by the collective consciousness is like they were told that if they cry that they're babies, or don't cry or I'll give you something to cry about, or they've been shamed for feeling any emotion. And not that women haven't, I'm going to get into that in a minute, but just to let you know, the masculine is just as harmed as the feminine. And not a lot of people want to admit that. But when you really look at it, when you really tune in to the fact that if they can rape and murder and kill and destroy the earth plane, they are in a fallen state. They don't know who they are. And they're just as traumatized and tormented by the dark forces and energy on the planet. And so the only way that we ascend into a higher 5D realm that we're moving into is together. So as the feminine starts to rise, the masculine does too. And this is what Jesus meant when he was being crucified and hung on the cross. And one of his last words were, "Father, please forgive them, for they know not what they do." They had no idea what they were doing by torturing him, meaning they didn't know that they were in a fallen state. They didn't know that they were missing the mother, the energy, the emotion, the nurturing, the unconditional love that makes you see everything outside of you as a part of you. You could never harm another if you had love, if you were led by your heart, if you were led by Christ, if you were led by the Spirit inside of you. You couldn't possibly do the things that are happening, which is why it's so important for us all to do our inner work and to rise into our divinity, because as one person rises, they affect the whole level of consciousness and everybody that they touch. Let me take a breath. That was a lot. Let me see what I'm missing here. Yeah, so the fallen state is that they don't see other as self. As we move into this 5D consciousness of reality, we can't possibly continue to reject one another or continue to war or to continue to have competition. It's going to take centuries. It's going to take centuries to undo, right? It's been, gosh, probably more than 6,000 years since the feminine took root into the earth plane. And so as we rebirth into feminine consciousness, as the feminine starts to take her rightful place next to the masculine and starts to set boundaries and starts to embrace her emotional body, then the masculine and the dark forces on the planet can no longer thrive on power and control because it will be sucked up. The darkness can't exist if we are all living in alignment with the truth of who we are as powerful creators, as sovereign beings who are here to do this work together and help each other rise up into a new way. So I say that because when we're talking bad about the masculine or we're talking bad about the feminine and we're staying in that energy, it only allows that energy to continue to exist. So we have to do better as a species. We have to understand that when you're talking bad about someone, or you're gossiping, or you're spreading rumors, or you're doing whatever, you're only feeding that energy. You're feeding it. That's just exactly it. Like, you're feeding it more because it thrives on that. It's a virus, it's a parasite, and it infiltrates our consciousness, and it infiltrates the way that we see ourselves and the way that we see other beings. And the way that it does that is through our emotions. So, circling full force back to why I'm even having this episode today and why I'm so passionate about teaching this in my course, is that there is a war going on for your emotional capacity and your emotional body. And that war is on the feminine consciousness. The feminine is feeling, the feminine is emotional. And what we don't understand is that emotions are energy in motion. And just like nature and just like everything else in the universe, it is cyclical, meaning emotions are cyclical. They come in waves. They're not linear. They're not masculine. It's feminine. So just like our menstrual cycles and the lunar cycles and the seasons of the planet, emotions come in cycles for us to look at, for us to address, for us to acknowledge, for us to feel, to allow them to teach us. But when we reject them, when we shame them, and when we start to feel like they're too much or we're too much because we have them, then we stay in that lower vibrational state of consciousness that we are here to rise above. So when you start to accept your emotions as they are, as messengers, as teachers, as lessons for you to do your inner work for what they're meant to show you, then you can start to rise above and alchemize your pain. But when we avoid them, when we're afraid of them, then they just stay spinning in cycles, and then they keep making us feel like we're broken, there's something wrong with us, and that we are failing. And mind you, the inner adversarial voice, the dark energy on the planet, wants that for you. Its biggest job is to make you believe that you are not a being of light, and that you are not powerful, and that you're not capable, and that you're not here for a reason. It wants to keep you in lower condemnation, and it wants to keep you judging yourself, because when you attack yourself, it wins. But the truth is that your emotions are messengers, and they're messengers from, sorry about that. Your emotions are messengers, and they're messages to what is unresolved, what is unhealed, and what needs to be alchemized within you. So when you have an intense emotional reaction, your job is not to judge it. Your job is to be curious about it. What is coming up in me? What is this related to? Why does this keep resurfacing? What are the stories I'm telling myself about my emotion, about my behavior? And what are the ways that the adversary is choosing to attack me or shame me in this moment because this experience happened to me? Because if it's happening to me, it's happening for me. And the outer world is only a mirror reflection of the work that I came here to do for the advancement of my soul. I remember when I was in my unawakened state, and I was very much in survival mode. I did not know who I was as I do now. I wasn't super spiritual. I did not have a lot of confidence. I felt very broken and very wounded. And I was constantly triggered all over the place. And I had a moment where I ended up throwing a hot dog at one of my exes. So I made him dinner, and we were on a boat, we were on a boating trip, and he's over there socializing, doing his thing, and I'm over there being the good girlfriend, making dinner, doing all the things that I think I need to do to be the good girl. And to take care of him. And so I'm preparing it or whatever. I don't know, fancy hot dog, who the hell knows? But long story short, dinner's ready. Come and eat. Come on. I'm calling down the dock, and he's not hearing me. And he's just blowing me off. Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there. He clearly wasn't hungry in that moment and didn't want to eat and didn't want to tell me, but whatever. It triggered the living hell out of me. as he's not coming, I felt myself and felt this energy rising up in me, this like anger and this rage. And I take the hot dog, ketchup and all, and I walk over there and I whipped it right at him. I think I'm like, these people must have thought I was freaking crazy. I was, I'll be honest, I was batshit crazy back then. But I also wasn't very self-aware and I didn't have a lot of control. But looking back on that moment, if I look at the hot dog analogy, which a lot of women go through, okay? If you've had a hot dog event, type it in the comments below and let me know about it so that I know that we're all in this together. But the point being is that only happened because I had an unresolved, unhealed abandonment wound in me. I was highly unacknowledged as a child. I had a father who didn't want me, who tortured me, who was pretty abusive when I was a little girl. I had a theme in me of feeling unseen and feeling unheard. And so when he wasn't coming over to eat his hot dog, my brain came up with the story that he's ignoring me. And being ignored triggered my inner child, obviously, like you wouldn't believe. And the only way I knew how to handle that in that moment was to be reactive. And obviously to cause a scene that, of course, I'm not proud of, but I can laugh about it now because it's freaking hysterical. But underneath that, it was like every single time I felt ignored, rejected, abused, abandoned, all rise to the surface so that I could do the inner work to explore what was coming up in me and where that was coming from. As I start to dive into it, of course that made sense. But now, obviously, I know, presencing to the child, presencing to the feeling, being the parent that she needed that she didn't get, and giving her the love and attention and protection and boundaries and letting her use her voice, like that is what transpired out of these reactions I used to have, because I had no idea that I had all this trauma in my body back then until I started doing the work to really understand what was going on inside of me. So when things come up and they bubble up to the surface like that, it's meant to be a messenger. It's meant for you to give it attention. It's not meant for rejection. When you ignore it, when you reject it, when you avoid it, when you don't look at it, it just keeps coming back. When you hold a beach ball underwater, it comes back up. And since emotions are energy in motion, when you push them down and you suppress them into your body, they're gonna bubble back up, and they usually come back with equal, more intense force. It's Newton's third law of physics, right? Anything you push against comes back to you with equal force. And so you can't suppress them, you can't avoid them, and you can't escape them. So why not do the work within them? Here's why we don't do the work within them. Because the ego, the part of you that wants to keep you safe and the part of you that wants to protect you, doesn't want you to feel them because it hurts. It hurts to face yourself. It hurts to feel the pain. It hurts to acknowledge the shame. But when you do, you free it, right? You face it, you feel it, you free it. So the ego has this tricky way of getting you to avoid your emotional experiences, where it will rationalize it, being like, yeah, they didn't really mean it. It's okay. I know that they care about me. And it wants to do this whole story making magical thing just for you to deny your emotional experience and say that it wasn't that serious, or wants to make excuses around it. It also will use denial. It'll say things like, oh, everything is fine. That didn't bother me. It's not a big deal. It's in the past. It's over with. All of these things that I constantly hear, I'm like, ego, right? When you hear yourself doing these things and you're bypassing your emotional experience, you're not freeing yourself from what your emotions want to, or what your higher self wants you to feel and wants to move through you. So I don't know, I'm also coming up with a story around the way that I used to deny my emotional experiences, where I would be driving home from therapy and I would be a wreck. I'm like crying, sobbing in the car, like those tears when you start to like stutter and shiver, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, that was so painful. I want to talk about that." And the minute I pulled in the driveway, I would tell myself, "Okay, got to keep it together. Everything is fine. I'm okay. Nothing's wrong with me." And I would walk into the house. And of course, my partner at the time was passive and didn't want to ask questions and didn't want to pry. And so I would literally just go and I would start cleaning and I would just pretend that everything was fine all the time. And that obviously was my ego's way to avoid vulnerability, to avoid talking about what I needed to talk about, or to express what I needed to express. And obviously, that was the demise of the relationship because nobody needs to be in a situation where they're constantly hiding and pretending that everything is okay on the surface, but all this stuff is bubbling up underneath inside. A lot of us don't have the skill set to be that open. And so another way that the ego uses to avoid dealing with it or facing it is through like people pleasing or perfectionism. Meaning like if I can make them happy or if I can pretend like I'm perfect and that everything is okay and I put their needs above mine, then I don't have to acknowledge maybe the ways in which my needs were not met and the way that I was hurt when I was younger. And we develop these protective parts that face front to hide what's going on emotionally inside, usually a deeper inner child wound or something else that we don't want to look at, we don't want to face, we don't want to admit, we don't want to acknowledge. We just want to keep hidden under the surface. And that can only last so long. Eventually, you will be faced with something called an ego death or a dark night of the soul, where everything starts to get disrupted in your world and you are forced to confront some things that maybe you didn't want to look at before. Obviously, like it doesn't work to deny your emotional experience, but we've been taught to do that. You know, there's not a person that I have worked, well, I don't want to say that because that's who knows. I can't keep track of everybody that I've worked with in my life. But the majority of people I work with, I have to work with them on not gaslighting themselves out of their emotional experiences. Because I will say, did you notice that you just started to bubble up and you started to almost tear up, but you were hooked on telling me the story about what was happening that you didn't even notice that you were about to cry? But then when they try to access it again, the ego comes in and wants to block it because most of our wounding comes from another person. So we don't want to feel, we're afraid to feel because we've been so rejected. But when you reject yourself and you collude with the ego that says it's not safe for me to feel this, you keep repeating the trauma. So the work is to rise above that and say, I'm always safe to feel my feelings. And if other people aren't comfortable with my emotional expression, then unfortunately, they're not for me. Granted, not everybody's emotional expression looks like the reaction that I had with the hot dog, but you get my point, is that your soul is looking for you to validate you. And when you do that, you build a deeper trust within yourself and within your body. You start to open up the intuitive intelligence that's always trying to communicate with you. And you start to look at your emotions as your navigational beacons for the decisions to make with your life. When you take breaths, you put your hand on your heart and on your stomach, and you ask your body, what is it that you need right now? What is the most self-loving, self-honoring choice I can make for myself? Where in my life do I need to forgive myself? Do I need to forgive another? Where am I still carrying unprocessed, unresolved, undigested shame? Because shame is the one emotion that is toxic for your soul, and unprocessed shame wreaks havoc on your ability to receive and let love in and to be fully authentic and transparent in your life and in your relationships. It is the block in the barrier of the heart. And the adversarial voice wants you to hold on to that shame. It doesn't want you to look at it. It doesn't want you to feel it. It doesn't want you to face it. And it will do anything in its power to continue to make you feel it until you activate the positive warrior within you and you say, no more. I need freedom from this. I deserve to have, or I do not want this to have power in me anymore. And I deserve to be loved, to be accepted, to be seen, to be heard. And I can't expect that from other people if I don't give it to myself. Working through the undigested, unprocessed shame is the biggest gift that you can give your higher self, because there's no such thing as perfection. And generally, the things that you feel ashamed about are things that this world conditioned you to believe were wrong. But if you can rise above that and you can own your sovereignty, which is self-governing, of I get to decide what this means about me. I get to decide how I live my life. I get to decide what choices I make. I get to decide what to do with my children, my relationships, my business, my body, my life, my bank account. I'm self-governing. Nobody outside of me has control over that unless I give them permission to have an opinion that I choose to talk with them about. That is sovereignty, right? And sovereignty can't exist inside of you if there's unresolved, unprocessed shame. So if you want to do the deeper work on that, I will offer you my free Module 3 workbook, which is Winning the War on Your Emotions, where you can do some deep dive questions on processing through this unresolved shame and unresolved pain so that you can have a deeper relationship with your emotional body. So just go ahead and send me a direct message that, yes, I want the workbook, and I will send it your way. All you need to do is give me your email. But to move on, right? Emotions are energy in motion. Emotions are your feminine power and your feminine essence. If we were allowed to feel our feelings, ladies, the world wouldn't be in the condition that it's in. We are intuitive. We are powerful. But we've been taught that our anger and our rage and our emotional expression is something to judge. But that is not true. The feelings that we have are our holy fire because we feel the injustice of it all. We feel the brokenness of it all. And when we can stand in our truth and stop denying what we're feeling about certain things, then the collective consciousness is forced to rise with us. But it takes every single individual on the planet to do that work, to ascend into a higher dimensional phase of reality so that there isn't any more of this darkness, right? We get to choose how we want to exist. We get to choose how we want to feel. But you can't get to the depths of enlightenment until you're in the depths of your pain. That's the tree of life, right? The roots grow into the soil and into the darkness as our light expands into higher levels of awareness and consciousness. It is the embodiment of the wild, the wicked, the wholeness of your human self. It's not rejecting or getting rid of parts of you that make you feel whole. It's the acknowledgement of who you are and all of your authenticity, all of the stories and all the things that happened to you. And when you stop running from yourself and you stop hiding from yourself, you no longer need to feel like you have to do that with other people. Does that make sense? Intimacy is, into me, I let you see. Into me, I let you see. And when you don't feel bad about anything that's ever happened in your life anymore, you can be the fullest, wholest expression of unconditional love and acceptance and forgiveness and validation, because you walk in the world as your I am presence of full acceptance and embodiment of your true self. You don't get there by bypassing. You don't get there by everything is love and light. Spiritual bypassing is a bunch of baloney. It's not true. It's avoidance. And when you avoid the other emotion, you don't feel whole. There's no way you can fully connect and be your authentic self with another if you're avoiding doing that deeper work and connection with yourself. So that's my soapbox. That's the truth. We are energetic beings. The feminine is emotion. The feminine is energy. We are the roaring river. Sorry about that. We are the roaring river, and we are the calm stream. We are all of it. And the masculine energy within us is the bumper plates and the banks on the side to make sure we don't blow up our lives. It is all serving us, and it is not wrong. It is the full embodiment of all aspects of yourself, your emotional side, your logical side, your shameful side, your beautiful side. All of that makes up the fullest, beautiful, authentic expression of you. And that's the way you get to walk in the world when you do that deeper inner work, which is why I love this course. It is so powerful. And I'm going to be selling it again in May. So get on my email list, sign up for my newsletter, or keep tuning into the channel. Like I said, if you want the workbook, Winning the War on Your Emotional Body, go ahead and send me a message and I'll give that to you for free. And then you can watch for the whole course that's coming out very soon as I create it, do it, market it all, and finish teaching it live to the women. We have 3 more modules to go, and it has been a lot of fun. And I can't wait to continue to share all of this super high level knowledge with you. Because at the end of the day, yes, you are a spiritual being, but you are having a human experience. And so you have to embrace all of that. If you can't laugh at yourself, if you can't cry, you don't feel alive. Your emotions are your path to freedom, to feeling, to being in this earthly realm. And that is the right that you get to have as sovereign, creative beings on this planet. So if you like this episode, make sure you tell me what resonated, share it with someone that you know, and don't forget to get on my email list by subscribing to my newsletter so you can see what wisdom gets to drop in the next couple months and the opportunities that are meant to help you ascend into this higher state of consciousness as we move into the 5D reality.